Today we are going to talk about Deixis. Well, the word Deixis is borrowed from the term of Greek word which has the meaning of pointing to or picking up. And these are the most basic things that have to do with the utterance that we have in conversation. And this Deixis is any linguistic form that we use to accomplish the task of pointing out. And then when we indicate something, we use expressions, right? And these expressions are what we called as deictic expressions or indexicals. Well, for example, is the pronouns such as I, you, with they, and then the pointing out on a place, this, that, or pointing out time, like yesterday, tomorrow, here, then, and these are the example. And then these expressions require an addressee to be able to pick out a person, place, or time that has a relevance in order to understand on how the word is referring to. And these are what we call deictic reference. While the meaning of the dialect expressions can only be understood only in terms of speakers' intended meanings, so from the conversation that has by the people included in those conversation. In linguistics, deixis refers to words and phrases that cannot be fully understood without additional contextual informations. Words are deictic if their semantic meaning is fixed, but their denotational meaning or the real meaning is varied depending on time or the place that is happening. While in reality, words or phrases that require contextual information to convey any meaning are deictic. For example, English pronouns, those all are deictic. Well, the deictic expressions are meaningful in a given context. And well, the fact is that they are among the first words acquired by the children. And then, in order to be interpreted correctly, the speaker and listener have to share the same context. And usually, they are particularly useful in face to face communications. And then, in today's presentations, we are going to talk about the 5 kinds of deixis. And well, actually, it is also separated by the traditional dices that was already exist, like the basic one, and also the modern one that is elaborated with the new linguistical terms. And the first, the traditional dices, there are person dices, place dices, and also time dices. And in the modern dices, there are discourse dices and also social dices. And this is a diagram of the traditional dices, or in here there are person dices. The didactic center or I is pointing out or have a conversation to the addressee, you or she, and that's what we call the person dices. And then the time dices, like before, is like the time before happening on the didactic center, or now from the speaker positions, or in later or tomorrow, like after the condition or the current situation now from the first speaker here. And then there are also the space dices or the coordinate positions of the speaker, like here at the didactic center, or there, like pointing out to somewhere else outside the speakers. And these are the proximity of the first speaker or the didactic center. And then what we call as the distance is like how long the length of the didactic center into the one that was pointing out. The first dices that we're going to talk about is the person dices, and it is included in the traditional dices. Well, it is a deity reference to the participant role of a reference. and by Ivanov. According to Ivanov, the person Deixis deals with the correct identification of the grammatical persons used to refer to the speaker and the addressee. Well, there are some expressions that was used in person Deixis, and these are like any expressions that used to point a persons, such as the pronouns in English. And then there are also the definite and specific pronouns such as this or that. And then indefinite specific pronouns such as somebody, something, who. And then the indefinite and non-specific pronouns like someone, something, nobody. Well, it can also be expressed in the possessive affixes of nouns, or is like the genitives apostrophe s, and it is pointing out to the ownership of someone else. Well, we can also use the name as its reference too. And these are the participant role of reference, and it is like the one involved directly and also the one that is not involved overhears, or the one mentioned in the utterance or the reference which are neither speaker nor the addressee. And this is the example of the person Deixis. Do you know, I was nearly dead yesterday. Luckily, he saved me. In here, there are the speaker itself, the pronouns I and also me, and then the addressee is you, the one the speaker talking to, and also the word he that is reference, which are neither the speaker nor addressee, but the one pointed out by the speaker.
Place deixis is also called a spatial deixis, a specification of location in space in relation to that of the speaker or hearer at the moment in a speech event. So it describes where the relative location of people and objects are being indicated. There are three classifications of frames of reference. The first one is intrinsic frame of reference. It is a binary spatial relation in which the location of an object is defined in relation to a part of another object. For instance, the cat is in front of the house. It means that the cat is at the part of the house that is its front, the side of the house that faces the street and has an entrance and maybe a porch. And then the second one is relative frame of reference. A relative frame of reference is a ternary system. The location of an object is expressed in relation to both the viewpoint of the perceiver and position of another object. For example, the cat is to the left of the house. It refers to 3 points of reference: the cat, the house, and the perceiver himself. And the third one is absolute frame of reference. It's also a binary system in which the location of an object is defined in relation to arbitrary fixed bearings, such as cardinal directions like north, south, east, and west. And for example, the cat is the south of the house. Uh, So the location of the cat is described independently of the position of the speaker or of any part of the house. Demonstratives used to indicate which entities are being referred to and to distinguish those entities from others. There are two demonstrative. The first one is proximal interpretation. It's to locate something near to the speaker. The sentence will like use here, this, and this. And the second is distal interpretation. Is to locate something far to the speaker, and we're using there, that, and those. Motion verbs is signs of place deixis. Come versus go makes distinction between the direction of motion. Like he's coming, it means he is moving towards the speaker's location. And then he's going, he's moving away from the speaker's location. And I'm coming, the speaker is moving towards the location of the addressee. And come is movement towards either the location of the speaker or towards the location of the addressee. The next is time deixis or temporal deixis. It is an expression in relation to a certain point of time when utterance is produced by the speaker according to Kierkegaard. People can distinguish between time points and time periods. For example, see you on 2 o'clock. It's time points because it's pointing on a time, and we'll continue this discussion tomorrow evening. Okay, it's time periods because he or she didn't mention the real time, so it will be so long time. Tenses is time relations in connection to a given point in time. Classified by three. The first one is present and past and future. For the example, present is work and past is worked, and future you will work. Tenses are also classified by two. The first one is absolute tense. It refers immediately to the time of the speaker's utterance. For example, simple past, simple present, and the second is relative tense. It's event that refers to another event that happens afterwards. For example, past perfect. Time deixis is relevant to various other deictic elements in language. For example, in greetings, like good morning, it can only be used in morning, and good morning can't be used in afternoon and the other time. And then expressions, like the former president, my ex-husband, and etc.
The discourse deixis, or is usually what we call the text deixis. It has the concerns in the use of expressions referring to a part of the discourse. Well, it refers to the expression used in a discourse, and these expressions include the utterance itself, as well as the state by Dilgerian Gazazi. Well, while within the time basis that was explained before, like next week, last week, well, in the discourse dices itself, the example is in the next chapter or in the last paragraph that has a correlation with the discourse that happening from the past or the next future. And well, in the discourse dices, there are many words and phrases in English that indicate the relationship between the utterances and the prior or that something happened before in the discourse. For example, is but, therefore, in conclusion, to the contrary, still, however, like it have anything to do with something that was stated before or what might be stated after that. And also, all these words make the reference to a statement or a sentence that was said before. Well, in some languages, there are have morphemes that mark such discourse notions. And these are the examples of the discourse deixis. Well, well, in this sentence, I bet you haven't heard this story. Use of this is to refer to a story that someone or the speaker is about to tell the addressee in this statement.
Social deixis. Social deixis concerns those aspects of language structure that encode the social identities of participants, or the social relationship between them. Social relations concern in all the relation between the speaker and the addressee, especially the countries. So, for example, in Japanese, are known for having several levels of politeness based on the social difference between the persons concerned. For example, Chromo and Ngoko words. We use Chromo word to speak politely to older people than us, and we use Ngoko words to communicate with our friends. Using Deixis, certain words like here, there, this, that, now, then, yesterday, as well as most pronouns such as I, you, him, her, them, can only be understood if we know about the context in which they are used. For example, the sentence, "You will have to bring that back tomorrow," will be out of context if we do not understand what to bring tomorrow. All these expressions have to be interpreted in terms of what person, place, or time the speaker has in mind. There is a broad distinction between what is marked as distant, like that, there, and then. It is also possible to mark whether the movement is happening towards the speaker's location. For example, the word come, or away from speaker's location. For example, the word go. So here's the example. If someone, he or she, appears moving towards you, you tend to say, "Here she comes." If, however, she or he is moving away from you in the distance, you are more likely to say, "There she goes." In real life, people can actually use Deixis to have fun. So for the example, the coffee shop owner who puts up a big sign that reads, "Free lunch tomorrow," to get you to return to his shop, can always claim that you are one day too early for the meal. So it means that you never get a free lunch. Deixis and grammar. The basic distinction for person, spatial, and temporal deixis can be seen in English grammar are presented in direct and indirect speech. As already described, the direct expression person such as I, place such as here, and time such as tomorrow can all be interpreted within the same context as the speaker who uttered below. Michelle says, "I'll meet you here again tomorrow at 3:30. It is a direct speech. So if we would change what Michelle said to indirect speech, it will say, "Michelle said that she would meet me there again the next day at 3:30. So we can see that there is a change in word here become there, and the word tomorrow become the next day. Time and place in indirect speech. In here we can see time and place table that show what words that change in indirect speech. For example, the word now becomes then, the word today became that day, the word tonight become that night, and so on. For the place, we can see that the word here become there, and the word this become that, and so on. Thank you for listening our presentation. Goodbye and have a nice day.